So I've just come off the Ouse Valley Way as it comes into St Ives, gone across a very attractive bridge, and I'm here on Holt Island with Keith Grimwade. Hi there.
Hello.
And we're going to go for a walk around the island.
I'm looking forward to showing it to you.
Right.
It's a very special place.
Well, should we go for a little walk down here? So, Keith, what is Holt Island?
Holt Island is a 3.5 acre nature reserve. It's owned and managed by Huntingdonshire District Council, and it's maintained by a group of, well, in total, some 60 volunteers who look after it and take care of it.
And in terms of looking after it, I mean, well, we're walking along a boardwalk. We're not walking on the grounds. We're on this boardwalk. That's all part of the sort of thing you have to do.
Yes, access to this island would be really restricted if we didn't have a boardwalk, because it spends quite a lot of its time underwater or with very soft mud, and we've got a 520 metre boardwalk. We're very proud of it, actually, because it means that the island is completely accessible for everyone. Pushchairs, wheelchairs, mobility scooters, they can all manage it, and that means everyone can enjoy it.
Yeah. It's been a bit pricey though, hasn't it?
The boardwalk, the new boardwalk, certainly has been pricey. It's the third iteration of the boardwalk. The first boardwalk was put in the early 90s, and that was installed by prisoners from Little Hay Prison, actually. Lasted 15-20 years. The second boardwalk was put in by Friends of Holt Island Nature Reserve and the volunteers from the District Council. That lasted 15-20 years, and it's a lot of replacing. This boardwalk, although we had to raise some £70,000, we're told it should last at least 40 years, so we think that's cost effective.
This hasn't always been a nature reserve, and I think we're going to go to a place to find out what it was first. Should we pop off there now?
Yes.
So we seem to be looking at some trees. What are they?
They are willows, osiers, the type of willow that's used for basket making. And it's what gives Holt Island its name. Holt is a regional word for a willow plantation. And we know that, well, Holt Island has certainly looked very different to how it looks now. We know from the first map, the large-scale map that was drawn of St Ives in 1728, that the western half of Holt Island was planted with willow for basket making, because Edmund Pettis, who drew the map, helpfully put a note on it. He said, planted in 1724 and not before. The eastern side of the island is labelled Town Den, and den is a word that means pasture. So we can imagine Holt Island in the 17th century being meadowland, really. Animals would have been kept on it in the summer. It would have been harvested for hay. And then in the 18th century, it was developed as a willow plantation. We know that by the time of the Enclosure Act in the early 1800s in St Ives, the whole of the island was given over to the production of willow for basket making. That's where it gets its name from. And what we're looking at is the remaining plantation. There were some 30 of these along the River Great Ouse in the second half of the 19th century. This is the only one left, and we try to maintain it in the original way.
You have made one small modification, the height.
Yes, they would have been coppiced, cut to the ground, and then the willow wands, the branches, grow some 2.5 metres over the course of a season. You're looking at pollarded willows. I suppose we're about 1 metre high, perhaps a little bit more even. And that is because of the muntjac deer. Of course, they didn't have those in the 19th century. They've appeared more recently. And they really like willow shoots, but they seem reluctant to stand on their hind legs and nibble them from the top of a stump. So this seems to work, and we produce quite a lot of willow from this and the other plantation on the other side of the island over the course of a season.
Yeah, and you've got an information board here showing us what life was like and who used to do this work.
Yes, the firm in the 1870s in St Ives, Harrison and Sons basket makers, became one of the largest in the country. It didn't just get its willow from here, but it did have a shed where willow was stored and processed. It had stretches of plantation that it owned along the Ouse as well. And it was really big business. It made the sorting baskets for the post office, the filters for hoses on fire engines over the course. Well, they were established in 1877, closed in 1970, and I'm told they made 30,000 potato baskets during that time, fruit baskets, of course, and eventually it was replaced by plastic and by imports of cheaper willow from abroad. And the firm went out of production at the end of the 1960s after a period of gradual decline. But it was quite an amazing undertaking. And what you can see on that board are some photographs of willow production on Holt Island. The women would have processed the willow, taking the bark off, known as stripping the willow. That's where the name of the country dance comes from, stripping the willow. Then it would have been taken and kept probably in some sort of trough to keep it soft and moist. For white willow, it would have been boiled up in a great big copper tub before it was then woven into a basket.
And we've also got a photo of a Harrison.
Yes, there were 3 generations of Harrison. The firm was founded by John Harrison in 1877. He was quite a character. For example, he won lots of prizes for his collection of birds. He was an ornithologist as well. And he was friends with Charles Cruft, who started the dog show. And then his son, Charles, carried on the firm. And then his son, John, who was known as Jack, carried on the firm until it closed at the end of the 1960s.
And you still actually meet his daughters, is that right?
Yes. Charlotte Jordan and Lynn Harrison are over in Oakington and are an absolute mine of information about how the willow was processed and all of the stories of the various characters involved.
And a few baskets.
Well, I recently visited them. They gave me a collection of traditional baskets from their attic, which really need to be in a museum, but currently they're sitting in my sitting room, which I'm sure is keeping my wife happy.
As we carried on down, I think we're going to see what happened to the island afterwards. So the business, it was no longer viable, replaced by cheap imports and then plastic. And then what happened to the island?
The island was sold or given, I'm not sure actually, to the town council in the early 1930s. They didn't do anything with it. It then passed to the district council, I think, in the early 1970s. But it wasn't until the 1990s that the district council decided to develop it as a nature reserve. So before the island had been pasture and then a willow plantation, it would have been wet woodland, and the idea was to restore it to wet woodland. And most of the island has been restored to wet woodland. We have the osier plantations, and then the third environment we have is the reed beds.
And so we can see St Ives Bridge from here across a big bed of reeds.
This reed bed, the largest of the reed beds, as you say, it stretches out eastwards towards St Ives Bridge. We're bounded by the main river. This is the south side of the island, and you can see it's quite a large area, size of a football pitch really, and it wasn't here in the 1930s. This has all grown up since the 1930s. Not absolutely sure why. I suspect that when they stopped commercial willow production, the island was returning to nature of its own accord. Silt was able to build up, and that led to a vegetation succession, and what we have is this reed bed growing up, which is quite an amazing environment.
It looks like you could walk all the way through it. But can you?
Well, you can walk all the way through it. You'll actually be on it's floating. It's actually floating on the river. So were you to put a pole down through it, about 1.2 metres below the surface, you will get back to the river. And it's home for warblers in the summer. Last year we had 9 territories, which is incredible. It's home for a family of swans who've been extremely successful at rearing youngs over the last 10 years or so. 5 cygnets currently parading up and down the river. You've got damselflies, you've got dragonflies. It is an absolute haven for wildlife.
Yeah, just seen an orange tip bus flying past.
Yep.
Yeah. And, there's a tree behind us. What's this?
Well, that is an alder, ALDER tree, an alder tree, which is a characteristic of wet woodland. We have a number of those on the island. The one that we're looking at is my favourite tree. It's glorious, isn't it? And you can see it's still got its seeds, some of its seeds from last year on, and seeds are coming from this year. So we will be able to maintain a succession of alder trees on the island, I'm sure, for years to come.
Now, there are some plants I'm looking at here that I recognise from further upstream, walking down towards this. And so, but maybe coming here is a good opportunity to find out what those plants are. You've got information boards up here, so you can learn for yourself what you're looking at as you're walking along the Great Ouse.
There are plenty of information boards, and they're very necessary for me as well, because by training, I'm a geographer, landscape historian, and when I got involved with Holt Island, I relied on the other volunteers to point things out to me and tell me about them. I do guided walks, and I rehearsed, I practiced, I identified, and then just before I did my first one, I came onto the island, and of course everything had changed. All the plants that had been pointed out to me looked different. There were new ones, new flowers. You can come once a week and see something different. And what we've got at the moment is an awful lot of comfrey. I should imagine you can see that along the river. And that is particularly good plant for certain types of moth and insect.
Well, let's carry on walking. So we're now walking parallel to the Great Ouse along this boardwalk, but this is actually an older section of the boardwalk here.
Yes, we're on the south side of the island, passing one of the willow trees that's not been pollarded, that's been allowed to grow into a mature willow, a really beautiful tree. That's another characteristic. And
we're seeing a big meadow, which we will have been seeing from the other bank.
That is Hemmingford Grey Meadow. It's on the other side of the river, and at the moment you're seeing it at its best because it's maintained in a traditional way. It's not completely without intervention, but you still get annually this incredible bloom of buttercups. It is a golden gift. It is absolutely glorious. Yeah. And when you see it through the feathery reed as well.
So who's in the organisation that looks after this?
The district council manage the island, and our ranger Sam is allocated roughly a day a week to guide us. There's a group of volunteers who do practical work on the island. They are recruited, inducted, trained by the district council. So, for example, it's those volunteers who put down the boardwalk, who do the work maintaining the vegetation, cutting the reeds, that sort of thing. And then there is the Friends of Holt Island Nature Reserve, which aims to promote the island and to raise money for the island in order to be able to maintain it. So you've got 3 groups that work together to look after the island.
And another thing that comes in 3 are boxes. We've seen some boxes as we've been walking around.
Yes, we have 3 types of nest box. There are the nest boxes for the birds, the ones that you'll be familiar with holes in the front, different sizes of hole for different types of bird. The ones higher up in the trees are the bat boxes, and the ones lower down are the mammal boxes, which we put on the trees to stop the mice going in the birds' nests and eating the eggs. The idea was that when the island flooded, the mice would run up the tree and go in the mammal box rather than running up the tree and going in the bird box. Nobody told them what they were supposed to be doing, so that's not been terribly successful. Actually, I've just remembered there is a fourth type of bird box, which is the owl box as well, which actually looks a little bit like a bazooka high up in the trees, as if we are firing missiles towards Hemmingford Grey Meadow, but it is for owls.
Yeah. We're just walking past, it looks like either cotton or wool on the trees. What is it?
This is a spindle tree, and what we're looking at is the webs, the cocoons made by the spindle ermine moth. Now, birds, especially blue tits and great tits, need to feed their young with an awful lot of caterpillars. This is their protection, and it covers the tree, and it looks as if the tree is in real trouble. But actually, the tree is perfectly healthy. It copes with it. It will be fine. After, in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, the moths drop on a thread down to the ground, burrow into the soil. That's where the next stage of their development takes place before they emerge as a moth.
Yeah. And we can see those at the moment. We see all those caterpillars wriggling around in some of these little nests. There's a parasite on this island. Should we go and have a look at it?
Yes.
We're just passing some dog roses.
Yes. There are some fruit trees as well. Legend has it that they were planted by the workers when it was a commercial willow site, but more likely they were just dropped by passing birds.
Yeah. And some picnic benches.
Yes, there's a small meadow area. We've got 3 picnic benches on the island, and this area is where we do events in the summer, like our Family Fun Day, and it means that we can focus activity away from the more sensitive areas of the reserve. It's only a small place, but when you've got 3 special environments, you need to manage it very carefully in terms of people movement.
So we're just now passing an information board talking about the water-loving plants. So again, that's a great chance to catch up on, again, many of the things that we've been seeing on the way here.
Yes, we've got information boards about plants and birds and mammals, and you do not need to be an expert to get something out of a visit to Holt Island. We've actually identified in total 111 species of bird have visited the island. I could run through the whole list if you wanted me to, but I suspect you don't.
Well, you actually, so on your website, you do put bird sightings on, is that right?
There is loads of information. We've got monthly updates on bird sightings, on ringing. We've got videos as well, including nighttime videos when the island really comes to life for many of the mammals.
Yeah. So it's now time to come and have a look at this parasite.
Yes, this is the greater dodder, and there are only 6 or 7 places in East Anglia where you will find this. It is quite a remarkable plant because it can't photosynthesize. It's a parasite and it depends entirely on finding a host. So the seed has about 24 hours to find a host when it germinates, to tap into the host, and then it quite literally takes all its nutrients from the host for the rest of its life. What it looks like is a whole tangled web of pinky, reddy, yellowy, orangey tendrils running across. It really likes nettle, and we're looking at some greater dodder on nettle here. A whole tangle across the nettles. And then for a small period of time, it has a really pretty pink flower. But it might be rare, but it seems to like Holt Island. It enjoys the conditions. And we're very proud to be able to show people and tell people about it. And there is an information board which tells you more about it too.
Yeah. And so I'm just thinking. So I don't know if we mentioned that before this island we've got photos of this island being quite bare.
Yes.
And yet now it looks like it's always been a lush nature reserve.
Yes, it does look like it's always been a lush nature reserve. Basically, what we're doing is taking it back to what it would have been like before human intervention. It would have been a wet woodland right next to the river. It would be the only vegetation that would be able to cope with that amount of annual flooding. It would have been cleared for pasture, then it was developed as a plantation, then it was left to run wild, and now if we have to maintain it, we're looking at something that looks really natural, but actually it requires an awful lot of work. I added up the hours this morning that were put in by the volunteers last month, and it was the equivalent of 12 and a half people working full time on the island. It's the boardwalk for public access, it's education groups, we do guided walks and tours, but the bulk of the work is actually looking after the asset and keeping the island as a nature reserve.
You have badgers?
We have badgers. It might seem counterintuitive that there are badgers on an island that floods, but they have cleverly found the highest part of the island for their set. And when it floods really badly, they do leave the island. We've found their path off the island onto the bridge and don't know where they go after that. I did see one running along the thicket path towards Houghton once. I don't know who was most surprised, me or it, but they come back and they've had cubs, and there's video footage on our website of the cubs being suckled above ground, which is the sort of footage that really makes Chris Packham jealous.
You mentioned that we're looking at something which is almost pre-human in the way things would have been, but you've got a theory that it might not always have been an island.
I do have a theory, but can't prove it. I don't think this is a natural island, because if you look at it on the map, it's separated from St Ives by the backwater, and the upstream end of the backwater, the entrance is really tiny. I can't see any reason why a river like the Great Ouse would suddenly do a turn like that. However, the original village, Sleep, where St Ives began, where All Saints Parish Church is the highest bit of land in the area, and that would have been the sensible place to put your settlement, given that it's going to flood each year. That would have been dry. If you're there, you're some distance from the river. If you look at the church, there's an awful lot of stone in that church. How did it get there? Certainly not by road. It would have come in by river. You could easily dig a channel from the main river to the village of Sleep and the church. If you did that, the channel would silt up. So the sensible thing to do would be to take the channel along to the upstream end of what is now Holt Island, and then the water flushes through and keeps the backwater clear. That is my theory. I cannot prove it.
But last time we talked, we were talking about watermilling down at Houghton Mill and how humans have changed the landscape, and it's very hard to work out what's what now when records lost. But actually, parish boundaries came to the rescue here as well, perhaps?
Yes. One of the spin-offs of the work that I did with Bridget Flanagan on the watermilling on the River Great Ouse was to have a look at what happened to the parish boundaries, because we found them deviating around the watermills in this area. Did it happen elsewhere along the river? I had a look at all of the Ordnance Survey maps from the 1880s, from Cyresham, where the river begins, all the way to King's Lynn, and there was some 96 parish boundary deviations. Only 4 of them are natural. All of the others are because they're protecting an asset, 30 of them for watermills. But also in the 1880s, there were over 30 osier plantations on islands along the river. And the parish boundaries go one side or the other, presumably because that plantation belonged to that parish, that plantation belonged to that parish. Holt Island, the parish boundary ran down the middle of the island, so that one half of the island was Hemmingford Grey parish and one half was St Ives parish. So the parish boundaries have been a real indicator and a lead into some other fascinating information about the River Great Ouse, which requires a lot more work, and it's something that I'm hoping to do as and when I can find the time to do it.
Something else you talk about. So this island was principally used or exploited for willow plantations to be able to make baskets, that sort of thing. We now make those out of plastic, but that can't go on forever. So is it perhaps pointing the way to something we could do in the future?
Well, it's certainly possible. The skills of traditional basket weaving are known by few, but there are people who've kept the craft alive. I suspect it would be an expensive crop to produce, but the possibility is there. There's no doubt about that. And there's something incredibly satisfying about having a willow basket that is 100 years old and is as strong and as reliable and as good as the day it was made.
Yeah, something to think about. So if we're coming along the Ouse Valley Way, how can we get on this island? When can we do it?
Holt Island is open at weekends and bank holidays from the beginning of April to the end of October, from 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. So the gate will be open and you can walk on freely. And you can, during the week, it's a balancing act. It's a nature reserve. If it was open all the time, the nature would leave. So it is closed to the public for immediate access during the week, but you can borrow a key from either the Norris Museum or the indoor leisure centre, the Ivo Leisure Centre by Burgess Hall, for a £20 deposit, and then you can come on by yourselves and enjoy the island. You can be king of the island for a period of time. It is a wonderful place to come and sit and watch the wildlife and read a book. We're open for some special events. Our family fun day is on the 11th of August this year, and we're open during St Ives Great Big Green Week as well. So we did that last year, we're doing it again this year, and it's from the 6th to the 14th of June.
Well, that's fantastic. And we can find out more details as well on your website.
The website has got lots of information. www.holtisland.org will take you to it. It will tell you how to get here, how to plan a visit. It's got all of the wildlife reports, a link to the video channel. We've got Facebook and Instagram as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for showing me around the island.
An absolute pleasure. It's a special place.